Alright, welcome to part 2 of this video. Here we are going to focus more on the front end, more on the Angular part. Our focus would be to download a file that we hosted using Firebase storage. So we're not really using services like Google Drive or Docker. We are actually using Firebase storage, which is kind of a cloud service. So you would require to be a full stack engineer, and we already have saved a file on the cloud here. I showed you in detail how to get started with this in our last video. So if you want to learn that part, please go ahead and watch the last video first. But in this one, we will be focusing on front end, on how you can go from a website like this to this. And over here, when you click on a button, how you can actually download a file in Angular. So that's the focus of this video. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Pranav, and I've been working as a software engineer for the last 5 years, from startups to Fortune 500 companies, and I have this channel with my soon-to-be wife Kritika, hence the name Programmer Couple. Alright, so this is my page. It's a blank page. We don't have anything here. We might not also have a route, so maybe let's create a route first, because if I go to /pivot, which was the original route, we go back to the dashboard. So it seems like we don't have anything, so let's create that as well. So first of all, I'm going to create a new component. Now I'm using Angular 18 and it has by default standalone components over here. So let's reuse those. So we just created a new component. We called it nggc, which is ng generate component and name of the component. Now the next thing is to actually have a route and connect these two together. So we should have a routes file. Let's find it out. app.routes. There you go. It is an empty file. We don't have any route created yet. So let's create one. So first of all, the path is going to be, let's say, pivot. And then when we go to the pivot path, I want to load a component, and I can use arrow function here. I'll just prefer them more. It's not like they're more efficient or anything like that. And over here, I will import. You could have done all of this automatically as well using some of the Angular features, but I'm just showing you if you had to do all of this from scratch. Pivot/pivot component. .10, and from the module pivot component. So here we lazily load a component. So the beauty of this is that as soon as your dashboard is loaded, you don't load all the routes. Imagine having a website in which you have like 500 different routes. In a regular Angular website, you would load all of that along with the Angular bundle, which is very, very slow. And over here we focus on only fetching this component when we go to the /pivot route. So that's the beauty of using standalone components by default. Even before standalone components, you could do that, but you had to work on your own to achieve that. So now if I go to /pivot, it says this site cannot be reached. Interesting. Now what's the reason for that? Let's go to my app component. Over here, I can clearly see that I do not have the router outlet. So router outlet is what actually brings in routes from the route file and shows them in the URL. And I also need to, of course, run Angular. Let's refresh. There you go. Pivot works. So that means our component is now loaded and we are on the correct route. Now I also want to give it some heading. Now I'm using Bootstrap in this, and again, if you don't know how to set all of these up, if you're new to Angular, if you want to see the prerequisites of this video, go ahead in the description. You will find all the prerequisites that you should watch before coming here if you're new to Angular or don't know how to build what we have built already. This is a project which is already deployed in Firebase using GitHub Actions. So as soon as I commit anything to master branch, it is automatically deployed to Firebase. And we're also using a custom URL, by the way, and if you're interested in learning that, also please check that out. So I'm going to give it a class of empty3 just to have some margin towards the top. There you go. It moved a little bit down now from the top bar, which is amazing. Next thing I want to focus on is, let's get into the meat of this video. Now I want to spend more time focusing on how the button actually works, so I'm going to skip the UI development part. So now we have a website like this. We want to go here, which has the button as well. So I'll just focus on the button now, so that in interest of everyone's time, especially if you're here just to focus on how to download a file using Angular, and I'm going to link all the code down in the description so you can just go ahead and learn how we did this part as well if you're interested in it. So let's create a button which will say download sample file. There you go. We have the beautiful button here. Now let's maybe give it some styling. So I'll say matte raised button. So I'm also using Angular material, as you can see. Let's see if it changes anything. Not really. So let's give it a color. Did it change anything now? It still didn't change anything. And a lot of times the reason for this is because I'm so used to using Angular with modules that I think everything will be automatically imported, but that's not the case. I'm using standalone components, which means I need to import all of these things manually. So first thing I'll import is matte button module. And the next thing I load is matte icon module, because I also plan to use some icons inside my button. There you go. The button is now very cool. And the next thing I want is the small icon, because these small things do add a lot of visual effects on the website, and they do make your website look a lot of times better than what it would be without them. I also want to use a larger button, so I'll give it a class of button LG. Again, these are all Bootstrap or Angular material concepts. Inside here, I would add an icon, like I just said, matte icon. Download. Let's see. There you go. Looking good. Now, last but not the least, which is the main logic, is would be what happens when someone clicks on the button. So when you click on it, I want to invoke the function download file. Now this function doesn't exist. So let's go to the TypeScript part and do some coding for here. So I'm going to create a function download file. And inside this would be the logic to actually download the file when the button is clicked. Now, to make sure that the button is actually working, I'll just do a quick console log. I recommend this to everyone that I'm working with, that please check if everything you have created is connected and it's working. So working. Now let's open the terminal, console. If I click here, working. Awesome. So that is number one. Everything is connected, the button is created, the function on which handles the button click is also working. Now let's work on the logic to actually download the file. First things first, which file needs to be downloaded is over here on my Firebase storage. It is called demo.xml. So I'll just copy the link. And remember, if you saw the last video, there's no authentication, there's no rule, so anyone could download this file. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to first of all save this URL somewhere. So I'm going to say maybe a constant file URL is equal to, well, not just the name, I need the whole URL. So copy link address. All right, this is good. So we have the file URL. Now what about it? Next thing would be constant link. So this could be where you want to download the file, how you are downloading the file basically. So I'll say document.create element. So we are creating an anchor tag. Interesting, right? So we're creating an anchor tag, and then I'm going to say link.href is equal to file URL. So this is very interesting. So what we did is we created on our front end, actually we are creating an anchor element. We are giving it a URL, which is basically the file's URL, and then I'm saying click on the anchor element. Now there can be multiple ways how you could achieve this, but this is one of the simplest ways. HTML already offers anchor tags to be able to download files. So why recreate the wheel? Why use fancy libraries when you can just create a link, add the file URL to that link, and just click on it? Let's try it out. Going to the website, if I click on it, there you go. The file was downloaded. As simple as that. I hope this makes sense. I hope you learned something from this video, and I don't use fancy libraries unless we need to, and I hope you appreciate that. The link in the description below contains all the prerequisites and the code and the blog that you might want or you might be interested in to get more information about what we just did. And thank you so much for sticking to the very end, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below, and see you next time. Bye.